The BBI report with official launch set for tomorrow, that is on Wednesday. Now, political affairs reporter Murimi Mwangi spoke to COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli about his expectations and his recent claims that the report should adopt a parliamentary system under which President Uhuru Kenyatta will come back as Prime Minister.
Finally, D-Day for President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga to finally receive formally the report from the Building Bridges Task Force, a team that was constituted after the surprise March 9th, 2018 cooperation deal between the two protagonists in the 2017 polls who had also faced off in 2013 in what was equally a grueling face-off. And it is a report that has been touted as the magical bullet to cure Kenya's social, political, and economic problems. That remains to be seen once the contents of that report are formally or officially released to the public tomorrow at the Bomas of Kenya. But I would want to speak to a man who has been quite outspoken about the BBI issue, and he has even given his recommendations to the task force as well as publicly to Kenyans on what to expect. The Secretary General of the Central Organization of Trade Unions, Kenya COTU, Mr. Francis Atwoli. Katibu, thank you so much for joining us. D-Day finally here. Are you excited? What do you perhaps expect this report to entail in terms of what is within your purview of the affairs of workers and other Kenyans?
First of all, I want to tell you that I'm not excited because I expected it. 2017, during May Day, I did promise Kenyans that I told Kenyans that the time is now for us to relook at our constitution and make sure, particularly the area of governance, we review so that after election, we don't have all these problems after every 5 years that we have been having. And I also went further and said, and people thought my head was not proper when I said, people like Uhuru Kenyatta, they are young. Where are they going to go?
And we're going to come to that, Katibu, because you and other proponents of the parliamentary system have been accused of attempting to sweep in matters, politics, and extension of other people's terms, besides other issues affecting Kenya. But before we come to the political aspect of that report, there's already an outcry from those that are opposed to the BBI that much of the discussions have been about politics, yet the implications of the aftermath of the 2017 polls and other acrimonious elections in the past have had economic implications on Kenyans, and there has not been adequate discussions on how to address this before we talk about 2022 and whether to amend the constitution, revert parliamentary from presidential. Do you stand guilty as accused, Katibu?
Not at all. Let me tell you, all constitutions in the world over are created for a purpose, and sometimes with people in mind. All the constitutions, including our own club organizations, welfare organizations, trade union constitutions, and NGO constitutions, or those articles, company articles. You want to start your company, you must see whether you will be the chairman of the company or you will be the CEO of the company. And if you will be the CEO, you have got to create that in the articles of your company. The same with the Constitution, National Constitution. So there is nothing wrong at all by suggesting that this Constitution will have to address the ills that have been facing us after 5 years. And we must come open. Let us be sincere. And I want to support the President. Recently he said, if somebody says there is nothing wrong about our governance, political issues, and so on, he must be a fool. Because I have seen, and when there are problems in this country, it is workers, women, and children who suffer. So when I'm talking on behalf of millions and millions of Kenyans who suffer immediately after elections. For example, we people in Western Kenya, we use the Kisumu airport, which is in Nyanza. Sometimes we cannot be able to access it immediately after elections. We have our colleagues who work in tea plantations in Nandi and what have you. Sometimes they cannot be comfortable there after elections. In Central Province here, we have problems. Rift Valley, this is issues that the Constitution can address. It has happened elsewhere. In Arabic world, in Arabia, everywhere. They look at it, which constitution suits us, which constitution that can create harmonious coexistence of Kenyan communities.
Something else, Katibu, the originators of this whole discourse that birthed the Building Bridges Task Force were President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga. But over time, there have been accusations of other power brokers taking over this initiative, and even talk of, involvement of the deep state in terms of the succession heading to 2022. Is the common mwananchi losing here if ultimately the final document and the implementation of the recommendations of that task force are about meeting the interests of these other power brokers that have come in and who have been outspoken about the BBI and 2022, and not the common mwananchi who suffered because of the aftermath of the 2017 polls?
Let me tell you, a common Kenyan has a representative, either in form of an MCA or in form of a member of parliament or in a form of elders like ourselves. We speak for the communities. We have that express authority to speak on behalf of people. And there is no way an ordinary citizen is losing. If his or her MP is talking on behalf of an ordinary Kenyan. So those who are opposed to it are talking on behalf of the people whom they are representing. Those who are pro the BBI and the new constitutional amendment, creation of prime minister, to look at the governance, they are also speaking on behalf of those people who elected them. Power brokers are everywhere to see how will this go and so on. And an issue of succession cannot be wished away. Because you see, the problem is, will that succession be peaceful? It shouldn't be like the one we witnessed 2007, or the one we have been witnessing all the time, 2013. We lose young children, we lose everybody, Kenya goes on fire. Employers reallocate, we lose jobs, we scare away the investors. Is that the country we want? We need to have a cure, and a cure must be in a form of a paper, a document, a well-documented document. And then a Kenyan who wishes Kenya to be peaceful, who accepts Kenya as our home, must address those important areas of our concerns.
Now, Katibu, my very final question, and I'm sure this is a conversation we'll be having even tomorrow at the Bomas of Kenya. This discussion on a parliamentary system, there are constitutional experts that I've spoken to, including persons that were behind the 2010 constitution, and even the president's member of parliament, Gatundu South legislator Moses Kuria, who argue that instead of this whole argument about reverting parliamentary, which in some instances some argue might necessitate a referendum, why not facilitate implementation of sections of the 2010 constitution whose failure to be implemented could be partly to blame for the socio, political and economic challenges that occasioned the post-poll chaos in 2007, the disquiet in 2013, as well as the acrimony in 2017, and ultimately this Building Bridges Task Force?
Let me tell you, before 2010 constitution, we had Bomas. Bomas' draft constitution had addressed all these things. But when MPs went to Naivasha, they amended a very deep document that people had worked on it for months. That is why we are in problems. And they accepted about 80%. When we were promulgating in 2010, 80% was good, but 20% must be addressed. This is why we are now going to address that 20%. I don't want to talk about Kuria. Kuria is a worried person because when the parliamentary system is coming, President Kenyatta, people have proposed, and he has said he can be a prime minister. He will have to go back to Gatundu South. Now, where will he be? That is what is worrying Kuria. Kuria is worried of his position. He's not worried about the new constitution and so on. He's saying, where will I be now if the president will be coming back for his own constituents, of which he will take at 10 a.m. he would have been elected in Gatundu South. So what we are saying is this. Let us look at these new proposed arrangements with sober mind and as Kenyans. We should not look at it, what am I going to benefit as a person? Who will be the prime minister? Who will be the president? Let's not look at it that way, because constitutions are meant for posterity and stability of a nation. And this is where, and even some countries I have seen, and you can read, even after 6 months implementing a new constitution, they will look at it if it is not working for them. You can read widely